Well, hello. I hope you enjoyed Jerry's warm-up. I certainly did. I needed that today. It sort of gets the brain right, I think. Coming up in a second, we have the wonderful Damien.Tracey, producer extraordinaire. So we're going to chat all about that. I just want to talk about what else we've got going on. After Damien, at 3 o'clock, we have the sensational Natasha Kathy Chandra, and she will be here working with 3 actors, working on acting technique, character and perspective, and then Lemoy Hendrington, I don't know why I can't say that, Hendrington, will be doing a Lion King musical workshop at 5 o'clock to take us out. So without further ado, let us bring in the wonderful Damien.Tracey. Hello, how are you doing?
Hello, sir. How are you? I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us here on the CCI. We're very excited to have you. We're going to talk all about your career in a moment, but I'd like to start by saying to people, if you're watching and you have questions for us, you can write in the live comment section. Of course, you have to be a subscriber for that, so please feel free and don't wait till the end. Do it as we go along, and I will pick into those questions as we go, because there's a slight delay. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber, shame on you. Hit that subscribe button and then you can chat to me and Damien here. Christopher says already, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Christopher. I hope you're well. And in fact, Christopher, you're going to be with us doing some acting very soon live on here, which is exciting. And Henry says afternoon as well. Hi, Henry Pine. So, Damien.Tracey, where did it all begin? So you're from Scotland, right?
I am slightly left of the Celtic brothers. I'm from Ireland originally, but we love our Scottish brothers.
Where are you from in Ireland? Tell us all about that.
So I'm from Cork originally, which is the 2nd largest city in Ireland. Some of us say the best, but it's So grew up in Cork, and then it's weird. Because I think you said one of the things we were going to focus on and how I got into theatre, and I have no idea, because nobody in my family at all is involved in entertainment. They've all got proper practical jobs, and they don't have to retrain in according to Rishi's guidance yesterday. Let's not go there. But always kind of wanted to do something with stage, and then joined a local drama school when I was about 12, and immediately jumped into their Christmas pantomime. I think it was my first paid gig. I think I got something like 100 Irish pounds for doing the entire panto, but I was in heaven. And then kind of always thought I'd go down the performing route, and did for a very long time. And then through various back and forth, finally went to drama school when I was 26. And trained at Drama Studio in London, and then graduated, and it was all going fine. But then just kind of wasn't getting the stuff that I wanted to be seen for, the parts that I wanted. So I thought I'd do what every healthy actor with an ego has, and I thought I'd write my own play. So I wrote a play, and we were getting lots of interest. But then it kind of the project would go, and then it would stop, and then it would go forward and stop. So I kind of thought that I would serve it better as a producer. And that was kind of my first producing gig in London. But circling right back, the first time I ever produced was to raise money for drama school. And I managed to convince the theatre to give me their space for a week. And I produced a Roddy Doyle play that ended up paying for my first year of drama school, and then I ended up getting a scholarship as well. So it was so it's a bit of a roundabout way.
I love it. I think there are so many people we've had on into how they got into it, and there's always sort of a wonderful story about that, and especially from I think my parents were very theatrical, but never in the theatre world, or in the entertainment world, but we were definitely, my mother was definitely very theatrical and loved the whole Amdram, and when she was younger. So I think that's where it came from. Going back to Ireland, I mean, what is it about Ireland? And interestingly, my grandmother, her mother is from Cork, so Keogh, nice. So we have that connection.
I knew there was a reason why I liked you, Mr. Pearson. It wasn't just because yourself and Rosie are two of the loveliest people in the industry. It's the Irish connection.
It is. It's there. That Celtic connection, absolutely. But there is something about the Celts, isn't there? Wales, Ireland, Scotland. There's natural music in their lives.
Yeah.
Like it's just the other. I'm half Welsh, so I'm basically a Celt through and through. And it is. There's always singing. There's always music. And in Ireland, I mean, one of the greatest, and I think that's when we lived in Liverpool, what we love so much is that feeling that it's kind of like, the English Ireland, really.
Yeah.
Every venue you go into, there's live music.
Yeah.
And you don't even have, it's not even paid. It's just somebody's got a ukulele out or someone's got a violin out, whatever it is. What is it? What is it about Ireland and just that thing? Where does that music come from, do you think? That influence?
I think it comes from heritage and from culture, from like way back. Like the Irish and Celts in general have always been phenomenal storytellers.
Yeah.
You go into, as you said, you go into any pub, you'll have in one corner you'll have an impromptu trad session kicking off, and then in the other corner you'll have this random guy holding court by telling the best story you can possibly tell. And I think it's just because we grew up in a culture of folklore and storytelling. Like even when you're going through school, part of your primary school education is all Irish folklore. I mean, not all Irish folklore is quite depressing because generally, children get turned into swans and then die. And most of the punchlines of all the Irish folklore children's stories, and then they died. So, but you go through school with this just storytelling is part of your life, and music is part of your life, and it's just kind of passed down from generation to generation. And I think there is a part of it as well as coming from the days when Ireland was incredibly poor, where the only entertainment they had is what was provided yourselves. Like one of my favorite traditions in Ireland is a tradition called the Shanachie. And the Shanachie's job was literally to go from house to house, village to village, to tell stories.
Oh,
that was his job. And so the Shanachie would arrive in a village, and if I think they'd go to a house, and they'd pick a spot, and people from the village would come out and just hear these stories. And again, it's just a culture of storytelling. We love telling stories through books, through poems, and through song as well.
It really is. And so I guess when you sort of turned to your family and said, I'm going to go to drama school, was that like, do you feel that like being from Ireland, it's not such a surprise that someone might go, I'm going to go to music college or I'm going to go to drama school? Was it kind of like, oh yeah, of course you are?
I think it was presumed because it was always on the cards, because it's what I wanted to do from a very, very, very young age. And I never really deviated from that. Like my other brothers have been like, I'm going to be a soccer player. And, now they've got a massively successful property company. So, they played their cards well. But whereas with me, it was, no, I'm going to be a performer. I'm going to go into theatre. And it was consistent. But it was foreign. It was really foreign because, we're working class. So we come from a council estate in Cork where, myself and my three brothers shared a bedroom growing up. So the thought of someone going to do something as impractical as drama school, I think it took my parents a while to get their head around it. But then I think they just got to the point where as long as you're happy, that's fine. As long as you're happy and you can look after you can survive, then great. They were happier with that then.
Had you been to London before you'd gone to drama school?
First time I came to London, I was about 15. I think it was about 15 or 16. That was my first time ever being on an aeroplane. And I flew to London because my brother was living here at the time. And we went straight to see Saturday Night Fever, the original production at the London Palladium. And I just remember being 100% blown away. And it was that production was incredible. And I say this, but joking, but I did stage door afterwards, and I got Adam Garcia's autograph, got Tara's autograph, and it was only about however many years later when we were sitting in the audition room for Little Shop of Horrors, which Tara directed for us. It's that memory popped into my head where I kind of went, oh my God, the first West End show I ever saw, Tara, you were in it. You were playing Stephanie. And I waited at stage door to get your autograph. And, now we're kind of working. It was but I remember just being blown away by the energy. Like we went into Leicester Square afterwards. I remember just standing in the middle of Leicester Square, and it was about 11 o'clock at night, just thinking, this place is insane. And I fell in love with it ever since. I knew from that point I wanted to live in London.
I had the same experience. I think I'd been there to London a couple of times as a kid, but then I came up. My brother was at university in London. It was at UCL, and my dad came down from Scotland, and I came up from Devon, and we met, and we went to see 42nd Street when Catherine Zeta-Jones was in the ensemble, and I think I was like 15. And then we went across the road to a pub that later on in my life, when I was at the Old Witch in Whistle Down the Wind, would become the regular pub, which was so crazy. We went across there and had a drink afterwards. Yes, at 15. That's what it was like. My dad.
This is true. Like that. That's why I think, with just going back to my parents, not necessarily being surprised that I was going to be an actor, because I'm also an Irishman that doesn't drink alcohol. So I think I break the mold in every single way there is. But it's when were you in the original cast of Whistle Down the Wind?
First cast changeover. Yeah. So
I would have seen you then.
Really? Wow. Okay. Amazing. I was on the stage swing, and then I understudied Amos, Snake Preacher, and then was on stage swing as well. So yeah.
And I came to London to audition for drama school, and on the Saturday matinee I went to see Whistle Down the Wind, and it would have been second cast. It would have been after the first cast change.
Wow.
Destined to be together, Mr. Pearson. Yeah.
That's incredible. And I think it is. I remember just being like in Leicester Square and just thinking, I've got to follow the dreams that I have, I really have. And then I went back as an adult, and I still haven't been drama school, and I just remember that buzz, and I thought, I don't want to be in Devon anymore. I need this. I need to be in this kind of existence and life. So what was like, so you went to drama studio, and it's interesting, isn't it? When you're there, you just think, all I'm ever going to do is be an actor, and that's kind of it. And we talk about that a lot with various creatives that we've talked to on the CCI, and I think it's definitely the best place to start. And often we'll go into colleges and be like, right, there's 25 students. I'll be like, in 15 years' time, you lot won't even be in the industry. You'll be producers. You'll be this, or you'll be stage managers. And you too will still be actors. Not based on their skill set, but it's that. And you'll find other things within the industry that you go, actually, I'm really passionate about this. And also creating your own work, which you did, and I've done. I certainly did as an actor. Is really important, isn't it? To sit down and go, things aren't going the way I need them to go. So let me just give it a go. Let me try anything. Did you feel that was it obviously was a major part of your kind of growth in?
Yeah. Oh, you just broke up. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, got you back.
I think absolutely crucial because I think when you go to drama school first, not that I would kind of blame drama studio for anything, but I'd already written a couple of things before I went to drama school, and I was kind of told, okay, but don't make that part of yourself known, because if you're going into an audition and they see that you're a writer as well, then they'll be a little bit hesitant. So I stepped away from that side for a couple of years. But I think, what really struck me, James, was when I started getting auditions, when auditions started going my way, was when I was working on my other stuff. Like when Warde Street was the first thing I produced in London. And when I started putting that together, and I remember like one audition going in, kind of going, oh, fine, but I've got a meeting with a director, or I'm meeting with a venue, and it just takes the pressure off. Because it doesn't mean you don't want that part, it doesn't mean you don't want that job. But if you're creating your own work, then you're kind of taking the control back in your hands. And you're kind of going, this is lovely. It is so lovely to meet you. I'm going to stand here and do the best job I can in the audition room. But I know I've got so many other things going on outside. And it actually helps you audition better. You must know it as a casting director, is that when you're walking into the room and you've just got a relaxed persona about you, then it just screams. And having sat on various audition panels myself, you just know those people who come in and they're not cocky, they're not arrogant, they know they're good. They come in and go, great, thank you, and they just have almost an ease about them, which is lovely.
I think we've found through doing these interviews, and I think it's been really beneficial for everyone out there, is hearing from the creative side, is that you're supposed to have talent. If you walk into the room, you're supposed to be able to do the job. Now, that's a given, and that's the work of a casting director, knowing that you have those skill sets. So that's kind of, take that off the cards, take that pressure off yourself of, am I going to be good enough? Yeah, well, you should be. Because you're being brought in. And so in essence, yes. Now, whether you're actually specifically right for this production or the design, that's a different thing. And that is nothing, you can't control that. There's nothing you can do about that. So, it was wonderful. We did a Broadway takeover at the beginning of last week. So we had Broadway Tony nominees, Grammy winners, stuff, doing sessions. And just the way they spoke was, as performers, was like, no, and it's not an arrogance, it's, I am talented. I have talent. That's why I'm doing this. Now, whether it's right for what you want, that's not my issue. I don't need to think about that. That's not part of my conversation that I need to have with myself. And I just think, good Lord, if only I'd heard this stuff, 20 years ago myself. Like, oh my gosh,
That's it, because I think you can go into an audition. Like, I remember my days when I used to audition, you can go in and you can put all your hopes and dreams in it, and then you can be just dismayed and you can question everything about your career choice, all that type of stuff, if you don't get the part. But it is amazing. And I think this is, if I would recommend to any actor, if you can, and you're probably going to get a lot of emails about this, James, so I apologize, if you can find a way to sit on an audition panel, even once, you will see how impersonal it is.
Yeah.
And it's all about who is right for the part. And there are going to be some days where, you don't bring it as an actor to the level that you would want to bring. And that's tough, but it is. And again, it's, my God, and you know it as well, James, it's that final jigsaw. It's putting all those headshots together and kind of going, okay, well, if we cast this person, then this person would be great, but they wouldn't necessarily work in this relationship. And it's just, it's far less personal than people think.
Oh, I mean, the number of times we've sat there on those final days with everyone on the table that you kind of go, okay, it's out of this bunch, and you're there and you kind of whittle it down, don't you? And then you've got these two people, and it's exactly what you're saying. And you go, okay, and you take that CV and you put it on the floor and you go, that's our cast, everyone happy? And then someone goes, no, wait there, we got that. And they haven't got that aerial skill.
Yeah.
So that means that person, so we go, oh gosh, but she goes, return person, take off, and then that person comes back up onto the, if you could watch it, it would blow your mind. And I remember the first time doing it, and you're just like, oh, this is really depressing. This is so, because you want to give everyone the jobs, it's mind-blowing, isn't it?
It really is. And it's, and I think one thing for me as a producer, it's one of my favorite things to do is the audition room. And depending on how many projects I've got on or how busy I am, I don't necessarily get to go there all the time, but it is just to sit there and see, because every production starts with a meeting. It will start with a conversation with myself and you, James, and Rosie about casting, and then you're meeting with directors, lighting, all this type of stuff. And then all of a sudden you're in a room and you start to see your show come together by the person who walks into the room. And it is, I adore it. It's one of my favorite parts of the process. And also, there is nothing I want more, you want more, the director wants more than for that person to come in and be brilliant.
Yeah.
It's just like when you've had those moments, James, where you sit in a room and somebody, they just, for some reason that day, they tick all the boxes. You can just feel that ripple across the table where you kind of go, I think we found our person.
Oh,
and
and
we all want that. And that's the thing I think I kind of want to impart into actors as well, is that we want nothing more then for you to come in and be brilliant and to shine, and for you to walk out that room and for us to kind of go, yeah, that's us, that's our person, because you're right for the role. And I think it's, and again, you know, as you know, the amount of submissions you get for each job you put out there. So if you're even getting into the room, it's because the casting team have seen something in you that they want to see.
Yeah.
So the fact you're already in the room, it's just, I almost wish we had time to make you know, actors meditate before they come in and just take a beat.
I know.
We've been there. I've been there. You know, I've
Oh yeah.
My first audition before I even graduated from drama school was Spike Lee, and I would have given anything to redo it. You know, when you're kind of with those auditions replaying your head and kind of going, "Holy, I could not have screwed that up more if I tried." But it's
I had an audition for Beauty and the Beast with the wonderful Pippa Allen, and I was doing a script, and I consider myself, you know, pretty good actor, and I just doing the script, and I could just sort of had this outer body where I kind of went over here and was looking back at myself going, you are horrible. You are a horrible actor. And I was just like, I remember saying, you know, coming out and saying to my agent, listen, that role wasn't for, because it was for Beast. That role really isn't me. I'm just really, can you just say thank you so much for having me in the room? But say he felt as though he did terrible, and he doesn't need you to go, no, he didn't. It just, that role just was really not for him. I mean, my God, it was all, I was just like, oh my gosh, it was horrible.
Then we have one of my favorite audition stories about being in the room was that I co-produced the last UK tour of Our House, and we had, like, we'd been casting for, I think it was about 2 weeks, and we'd been doing dance calls, and we needed to cast someone to cover, I think it was the character of Reese, which is played by the lovely George Sampson, who's a joy of a human being. But we need them to be able to be part of the ensemble as well. So this wonderful actor had just sung the hell out of it, had danced the hell out of it. So we were getting him in to read for the first cover of Reese. And he knew it kind of had to be in a London accent. His agent had told him, we had told him, and bless him, he just couldn't do the London accent. And we were just so willing for him because he was brilliant. And we were going through one of the scenes, and then he said, he broke in a gorgeous Scottish accent, and I won't try it now because I'll just offend people. But he just said, let's stop. Who are we kidding? I can't do this accent. I'm terrible. And he burst out laughing. And then we all laughed. And we're like, no, try it again. So he tried it again. He said, oh, lads, come on, who are we kidding? And it was just gorgeous. Because you kind of think because he left that room with us kind of going, you know what, he is not right for this, but God, I want to work with him.
Yeah,
everything. I want to put him in a company, you know, because it was just that beautiful honesty. It was,
I love that. So that's producing. So the first thing you produced was
sorry, buddy, I think I just lost you a little bit.
I'll ask that again. So the first thing that you produced, the first thing that you produced was something that you wrote yourself?
It was technically yes, because I was part of the Gaiety School of Acting, and they do kind of a project at the end of every year. And when the course director found out I was a playwright, because I'd written a children's play at that point, she asked me if I'd be interested in writing something for them. So I wrote a play called Why I Haven't Killed Myself, a comedy. And it was about people who'd had mental health issues, but in a kind of funny way. But I ended up, without me even knowing what a producer was, producing that as well. And then I managed to convince the theatre to give me their theatre for a week, and I produced a production of Brown Bread, a Roddy Doyle play, and it was purely to raise money for drama school. So I kind of produced twice in Ireland, and then I think I was out of drama school about about a year and a half, and I just, again, I was working front of house at Wicked, and a guy was working with Yui. We're just polar opposites, but we got on really well. And I was just thinking one night, what would put us in a room together? What scenario would put us in a room together? And by the time I kind of gotten off the tube and back to my flat in Ealing, this idea had popped into my head. So I started writing that, and we'd done like readings and workshops. And then I started submitting it to theaters. We started getting interest. But it just kind of never went further than I would like. And then because I wrote originally as a lead for myself. And then I kind of stepped back and went, you know what, I think I'll serve it best as a producer. And when everything just falls into place and you just kind of think, why does this feel so good? Yeah. Why do I feel more creatively alive doing this than I ever have on stage? And that was the start of it. And then I stayed acting for a little bit. We'll say auditioning, and then slowly but surely went, actually, no, I think producing is what I want to do.
And so where did it then become a job? Like, when did it go from being something that you did as almost like a necessity to create for yourself? When did it then go, okay, now I'm going to look at other people's work, and what was your process then? How did that go? How did that begin?
I think it went from Warde Street that I wrote, then led on to, I was working at Dominion Theatre at the time, and they have a studio upstairs that is kind of everybody uses for rehearsals, but they just said, look, they came to see the show, said, we love your show, we'd love to give you the studio to do something for a week. So I wrote another play quite quickly, which was a fundraiser for the Russian LGBT network, and we did a week's run of that, and then I just kind of thought, this is what I want to start doing. So I started chasing down rights. And then I think I inadvertently ended up producing something of the Old Red Lion. And then it just kind of went from there to there. And then all of a sudden, I just found that my entire time was being taken up by producing. And then the guys at lovely Steve McGill and the guys at Salador, through stage one as well, was a massive kind of green light for me, because I was still kind of working as an actor, but I applied for their apprenticeship scheme and kind of got down to the final round, but didn't get it. But through that, they kind of opened some doors. And then I did their workshop, and then I did their bursary. And through the bursary, I met Steve McGill. And it just all kind of to fall into place. And then I went on as an associate producer on Footloose. And then when I think it really started to fall into place full-time was when I co-produced Little Shop of Horrors with the guys at Salador. And I just kind of thought, okay, I remember ringing my agent one day as I'd been put up for a commercial casting. And I mean, anybody out there who's done a commercial casting knows that you need to find a skill to leave your soul at the door so you can go in. And I remember going for the casting and just being so like, oh, I have so many emails I need to send today. I'm still raising finance. And it was just that moment where I kind of thought, okay, I think I need to step away, because I'm not as passionate about performing as I used to be. It's unfair to my agent to put me up for stuff that I'm not going in fully committed to. And then that was kind of the decision where I was working part-time, or working kind of part-time, and then producing on the side. And then it just went from show to show to show, and then ended up at Bill Kenwright, where I've just finished an 18-month contract working for Bill. So it was, it felt quite natural, but it felt like it was always meant to be as well.
Awesome. I've got some questions about that, but let's just go to Christopher's got a question here. Hi, Damien. Hope you're well. As a producer, how much time would you spend scouting for new shows? Would it be something you'd heard about on the grapevine? How do you find your shows?
Very good question. I think and I'm hesitant to use the term, but I suppose as a commercial producer, my aim is always, does this have a financial life? Like, will this get an audience? And I think, sometimes people look at the term commercial producer as just being money driven. And I mean, we are to a certain extent, but it's mainly audience driven. The question I ask is, will this find an audience? And if I put in a certain venue, will that be the right play for that venue? So I'm always on the hunt. Generally, like every producer, you're always on the hunt for those big titles that everybody wants. And you ring the agent and the literary agent, and they smile politely and kind of go, absolutely not. But it's a combination of those, and then it's a combination of collaboration as well. Like it was Footloose, Steve McGill came to me, and then it was through that process, myself and Salador chatted, and I said, we're doing Little Shop of Horrors. I said, I'm obsessed with that show. I love it. Then we ended up working on that together. And then it is just ideas, and stuff does come to you as well. Like I do get sent quite a lot of scripts, and it is just collaboration, and we all have our wish list. So you kind of have your hit list of shows you would love to do. And then people reach out and go, I'm producing this. Do you want to come on board? And yeah, it's kind of a mix of lots of things, really.
With regards to the rights, how do you even start going about, especially as a new producer, where often I imagine they want evidence that you're going to be able to do the show justice. How does that even begin? How does that conversation even start? When you, let's say, when you were first, fresh, I know you're approached by Steve, but let's say you weren't. How does that conversation go with getting the rights for something that's already been written?
But I think if you look at something like Our House, and credit to James Tobias, who was the co-producer with Immersion Theatre. James is the one who kind of came to me with Our House. He was my associate producer that I brought on board for Little Shop. And we were talking, and I loved Our House. I saw it at in the West End, and saw it immediately went back within a week because I adored it. But James had, the first thing you do is you just write to either the literary agent or the estate, if it's been managed by an estate, and just find out if they're available. And then you kind of go, okay, great. And then you go back and start to put together and it's really difficult at that point, because this whole tentative conversations, you might go to a director and kind of go, look, I'm potentially looking at getting the rights for this. Is this something you want to do? Or you might, if it's a musical, have a choreographer or someone like that who you think is right for it. And then it's kind of going back to the estate with a package, or to the literary agent going, this is what I want to do with it. This is why I want to do it. This is where I think it would be great. If you do have proven track record, great. But if you don't, like if you're a novice and you're a new producer, then sometimes if you can sell it passionately enough and you can show that you really love the product, that will do it for you. That will absolutely do it for you. And it was because James went to the agent for Our House, and he met with Tim, who wrote the book for it, and he was able to convince Tim that this is what we want to do, and there was a passion behind it. And then you just get to a stage where you're kind of at Salador level or Bill Kenwright level, where you've just got a proven track history, and people go, we want to do the rights. Here's the however many shows we've done previously. But the initial ones, what the people are going to buy into initially? They're going to buy into you and your passion. So if you can sell the project, if you can sell your vision for the project, and if you can show true passion for it, then that goes further than you think.
Incredible. Really, really interesting. Really interesting. Guys, if you have any questions for us, please, pop them in the live comments box. You can only do that if you're a subscriber. So please subscribe and then ask us questions. When you come to look at a budget, I think the interesting thing is where like how what's your, you don't have to give away all of the secrets, but certainly where does that whole right, I now need to raise the money for a production, like how do you even begin with that kind of thing? How do you go, right, are there people that you write off to that specialize in investment, or what's the process there?
I think initially you get down on your knees and you pray and you apologize to Jesus, Buddha, or whoever you believe in for any wrongdoings you may have done in the past year, because you're about to step off on something ludicrous. Because there's a ludicrous element to theatre and to producing. I think ludicrous in your entire thing is based on hope. So you do your budget, you kind of, let's say if it's a tour, it's a bit different because you're playing multiple different venues. But let's say, for instance, at like the last thing I produced before I joined Bill Kenwright was Peter Pan at the Park Theatre. And I knew the length of the run. And then I kind of thought, okay, this is what I want to do with the show. So you set out your budget, you cover every single thing from the lighting hire, to rehearsal room hire, to tea and biscuits, to press night party, to rehearsals, to costumes, to set. You set it all out, and then you kind of look at your figure. And then for me, I work out the potential box office gross from the run, because ideally for a short run, or for like a 4 or 5 week run, for all shows especially, but mainly 4 or 5 week run, you want to know that you can recoup your costs within 60%. So within 60% of your audience, if you sell 60% of your tickets, you're going to recoup your costs, and then you're going to be able to make a profit. And then if your budget is over that 60% mark, then you start tinkering with that and seeing where you can save money on that. But it is kind of that, it is a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets become your greatest friend, where you literally mark every item you need, and then you always put in a contingency as well, because like the thing with theater is that you're dealing with human beings. You're not dealing with a processed product, so stuff will come up. So you do every item you need, put in your contingency, then you look at your gross potential from the run, and ideally you want to be able to get into 60%, so you can then go to investors. And like, you know, when I started initially, I think Warde Street at the Tristan Bay, we did a week's run, and my budget was £3,071. And I ran it. You know, I'd read a brilliant book by Judy Screen, who brilliantly I just spent the past year working with, and Judy's wrote a book called How to Produce a West End Show. And I read that and went, okay, so that's how I do this. And I broke my £3,000 down into units, and I initially mainly went to family and friends and went, will you invest in this? And brilliantly they did. And then so you kind of break your budget down into sizable chunks and say to people, here you go. If you buy a unit in this, then we'll share whatever profit we make, we will share it. However the producer split is, it will be 70-30, 60-40. And that's it. You just break your budget down into chunks and ask people to invest. I mean, you go from like Warde Street was 3,071, and then I think Peter Pan at the Park was about 100 grand, and then Little Shop's about 125. And it's the same process. It just gets scarier and scarier because you need to raise a lot more money.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. It's and so once you with regards to just to talk about there are different ways, aren't there, working with theatres, where you can go, right, basically you're just going to rent your theatre and there you go. Or like on a tour, there are splits. Is that right? You're like a 60-40 or 70-30. What is that? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so the golden nugget with a theatre is if you can get a guarantee. If you can go into a theatre and they are guaranteeing your running costs for that week, then you know that whatever happens, you're not going to lose money. And then if you get a guarantee, it will generally go into, once you meet your guarantee, then the theatre will take a first call of anything between £5,000 to £10,000. Then you will take a second call, so you might get some profit. But most deals are on it varies, but generally between a 70-30 split or a 75-25 split, where the theatre takes 25% of the box office and the producer takes 75% of the box office. But that is with royalties off the top. So no split is done until royalties have been paid to the author or generally to the rights holders. So you take royalties off the top, and then the profit is split in accordance with what the deal is. Most commercial theatres, it's between 70% to the producer, 30% to the theatre, and then some it's 75-25. And then there are other deals where it's based on a call basis, where the theatre won't give you a guarantee, but you say, okay, but I need to make sure I make this much money to pay all my actors. So your first call is generally up to your running costs. Then the theatre get a second call, then you get a third call, and then it goes into a split. So it's a little bit of a jigsaw, but yeah, generally on big commercial venues, it's a 70-30 split.
Right. And with regards to rights, you know, in terms of that, we say rights off the top. Is that something determined by obviously, I'd imagine by the people who hold the rights? They say, well, right, for this week, it's going to cost you this much. Is that how it works? You go, I'll give you a tenner. You know, how does it work?
I mean, no, I'd love if it did though. I mean, my life would be so much easier. I'm going to give you a tenner. I'm going to treat you to a Wagamama's, and we're going to have a lovely evening. It will be fine. No, rights is predetermined. Yes, it'll all be fine. Won't it, James? Particularly at the moment, it's all going to be fine. No, for rights, if you have it's an agreed amount. So it can be anywhere for play, can be about the 6% mark, and then for a musical, it can be anything between 10 at the extreme end up to 15%, depending on how commercial the title is. And that's
15% of what you make on it, or what? Sorry, I missed that bit.
So it would be 10% of the box office, 15% of the box office that week would go to the royalty holders, and you're committed to paying them. So you would have to pay a fee initially to secure the rights, but that fee, let's say, I think for Peter Pan it was something like £3,000, but that fee was guaranteed against royalties. So then that £3,000 will be taken off the royalties at the end of the tour, but it's a guaranteed amount. So and then whatever you make at the box office that week, then the royalty holders will always get their 6 if it's a play. It could be more, or 10%, depending on what it is.
Got it. Right. Interesting stuff. We have Mr. Tom Gribby, agent and producer.
Love Mr. Gribby.
What is the hardest thing you have found about producing?
Working with agents. I'm joking. Tom is wonderful. He's a wonderful agent. It's, you know what, the tough thing about it is the isolation, because so much of it is kind of done by yourself. I mean, that was the beauty about working at Bill Kenwright, is you're working as part of a big team. So isolation can be hard, and it's, in a way, it's all kind of resting on your shoulders. Because if you are the exec producer of something, or the lead producer of something, you're the one who is kind of greenlit this idea. You're the one who has to raise all the money for it. You're the one who has to just put all the jigsaw in place. So that can be hard, that it is all resting on your shoulders. And I think as well that sometimes it can be the presumption that the producer is just out for themselves and not out for the show, and that can be a presumption in our industry, that producer doesn't care, or the producer's doing nothing, and you're kind of thinking, no, I've been working on this for 6 months to a year before. So I think the isolation can be hard, and it's just the dealing with the gut-wrenching fear that comes sometimes as well. Like where you're getting box office reports and you're kind of going, dear Lord, please let this box office report come in. And it is dealing with the emotional side of it can be really tough. And I think it can be hard as well when you poured your heart and soul into something and it's just not selling. The show is brilliant, the reviews have been great, but for some reason that hasn't connected with an audience. That can be quite tough as well.
Yeah. Great question, Tom. Keep them coming, please. Keep those questions coming, Tom. Seasons, that must be a real risk as well, isn't it? Like, obviously, Christmas is your panto season, but there's got to be times you just go away from that time of year. I imagine like August, something like that. Is that right? Is the summertime a bit of a all time? Is that, or am I wrong? Does that not exist, or how does that work?
No, I think it does. I think it's like, from my limited experience compared to some of the other established producers, I would say there definitely are seasons. I think particularly on a tour, if you're touring throughout the summer, then that can be really tough, because if it's a gorgeous, sunny, beautiful weather, then nobody's going to want to go to the theater. If it's if people are away on holidays, I would say for tours there is definitely a season. And even in the West End, the summers aren't as strong as they used to be, because normally you would have such a high tour season from maybe June, July through to September, but even summer in the West End is, unless it's a really hot ticket, it has calmed down. So summer is, I would say, one of the tougher times to produce. your tours generally tend to, like, I have started tours in August because you wanted to hit it stride by September when everybody's back at school. So your kind of tour schedule tends to run from September to end of October, start to November, because then you're into Panto, unless you've got a Christmas season somewhere. And then you tend to go back out the end of January till maybe April, May time. So I would say, I'd say summer is one of the toughest times to actually produce something.
Obviously, coming on to, we've got to touch a little bit on COVID.
Yes.
Obviously, it's doing that disease is doing remarkable things to our industry, and certainly me and Rosie, we've been thinking about what this means to the industry and what it looks like on the other side and stuff. And we're saying that there could be really a renaissance in terms of theatre, because it might mean that not every theatre opens, and we have to look to alternate spaces. We have to think a little bit more outside the box. What do you, apart from, for future producing for you, like how are you getting your mind, or are you getting your mind around it? Is there, have you been spending this time just thinking of what that new industry looks like? Maybe is there, like, what are your thoughts in that area as a producer?
I think I was saying this to you previously, where just when you feel like you've found your footing and you've gotten your bearings, the sands shift all over again. I think it's quite a precarious time. I think for me, it's made me ask an awful lot of questions, kind of go, what do I actually want to produce? What are the shows I want to do? I mean, I've been blessed to be working at Bill Kenwright for 18 months now, but I'm finishing with Bill this week. I'm just seeing it on that commercial scale as well, but it's also kind of going, what is it that I want to produce? And also, when do I want to do it? Like, when do I think it will be safe to go out and do it again? Because there are producers. I mean, I saw Katie Lipson's last 5 years on Saturday night at the Southwark Playhouse, and it is stunning. There are people like Katie who are kind of taking the risk, but kind of do that on a bigger scale is going to be hard for a while. I think it's also asking the questions you were asking, is in, what will the new future of theatre look like? Will there be a hunger for certain types of shows? Are we going to have to find new spaces? Will venues that we normally rely on, will they even be there anymore? And it is kind of looking at those questions, but at the moment I'm kind of at the project development stage. We're looking at a couple of projects and kind of going, okay, when do I want to take this forward? But it's just a really scary time as well. I have no shame in saying that it's just so unsettling, and that you can't, if the big guys like Cameron, and Rug are putting shows and kind of going, we're not going to put anything out, then for a younger producer, an up and coming team, then it's doubly hard, because you're thinking, if the big guys can't do it, but then you do have golden kind of lights in the industry, like the season that Jamie Chapman Dixon did it. The Barn has been incredible. Steve McGill's doing a show at Sheffield Crucible that played New York as well. Katie's got last 5 years. You had the festival, a couple of festivals in London as well. So there is stuff happening, but I think it's going to be a different landscape. I really do.
Yeah. Because I think that there must be, and we know you, and there must be an element of also that there's opportunity. Because I have to see, the way my mind and Rosie's brain works in these scenarios is we have to cry about it, and we have to wander aimlessly around our garden in our underwear, drinking wine at 10 a.m, crying about it when all
I
this
look forward to that workshop. That will be fun.
that happened. But then the neighbors are like, come in, children. But there has to be an element of seeing an opportunity to go, okay, well, look, the norm isn't there, so let us, and because that is what is great about our industry, is that our ability to adapt, our ability to pivot, our ability to kind of run with stuff. And I think that comes from all elements, like actors being in the rehearsal room, you're not asked, just you're not told, you're asked, try this, do this, and you have to adapt and try and I just think our makeup as artists is adaptability, our ability to change and kind of almost be cockroaches, that survival mechanism that's in there. Do you see that there is potential for an opportunity of a new industry, whatever that might be?
Yeah, I mean, I think, but I mean, this is case in point of your seeking an opportunity. You know, the collective creative initiative was something that was born out of you and Rosie kind of going, this, our industry doesn't exist at the moment. What can we do to help? This incredible initiative has purely come out of exactly what you described. And then, okay, well, where's the opportunity? Where can we help? And I think there is absolutely opportunity in this. I think the West End landscape, because the trying to get somebody in the West End is really tough because there are so many shows circling all the time to come in. So I think the West End landscape will change for a while because big shows are being delayed, or shows that were going to open aren't shows that had been running or have closed early. So I think there's going to be more opportunities in the West End, and there's also, I think, hopefully going to be opportunities when you go out into the touring market to kind of go, look, we need to take a mutual risk here. Like it can't be all down on the producer. It can't be down on the theatre company. It has to be a mutual risk because we're all in uncharted territories. And then there's going to be, you know, if you look at all the streaming stuff that's happened, all the online shows and that area of theatre, we have been behind on, particularly in the UK. America being a little bit more ahead of the curve, but what's been brilliant and what's come out of lockdown is all the streaming opportunities that have come out. So I think there absolutely is a new landscape. I'm looking at ways myself, kind of a couple of company ideas of kind of going, if it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't even be thinking about this. But right here, right now, I think this could have potential. I think there's absolutely.
That's exciting, isn't it? I think that's what it is. And I think that our industry will come back. Of course it will. It will come back. But I think what's exciting, and Rosie and I think what's exciting, is that thing of it's making our brains go, oh, okay, that's not there right now. So, and then you kind of go, we would never have put this together in. No way. We were, we were too busy to start with. It's just there's no chance. And with this has come so much more opportunity in terms of the way our brains are working. This and this and this, and it's definitely changed our kind of the way that we view things. It really has. And
because right here, right now, normal doesn't exist. Particularly in our industry. I mean, in society it doesn't, but particularly in our industry when did we see Six together? It was the start of this year, wasn't it?
It was right before we went to New York. I think it was in like March or something like that, the beginning of March.
Could you have imagined that we had an incredible night watching a wonderful, wonderful show, that a couple of weeks later, that I still cannot forget that night when we were sitting in the opposite Bills, and lovely Boris Johnson said, don't go to the theatre. Apparently that was not planned. It was going to happen during the week, but at that moment he wasn't going to say, because apparently theatres are going to get a heads up. Thanks, Boris. And just sitting there, and we luckily it was one of the first times we didn't have a show opening on a Monday. So all our shows are opening on a Tuesday. So we were able to turn every single get in into a get out. And then finally at the end of the night, when we I think I left the office at maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock that night, just on the tube home, and actually just tears running down my face, kind of going, how has this happened to our industry? And since that moment, since that night, I think whatever date in March it was, the normal hasn't existed for our industry. And I think it is going to create devastation. It's going to lose a lot of people out of our industry, so they can't afford and sustain it anymore. There is opportunity there as well. And the fact that I'm talking to you on the Collective Creative Initiative is a wonderful, gorgeous example of finding opportunity that not only helps you, but helps other people as well. And I think, and one thing I've focused on myself an awful lot has been mental health. And keeping my mental health sane, because I think, I'm quite open about the fact that I had depression before and that type of stuff. And I think particularly, and I think just as any creative in our industry, be it an actor, be it a casting director, be it a designer, director, one of the greatest gifts you can give to yourself, aside from all the singing classes, all the technique classes, is making sure you're giving ample time to your mental health.
Yeah.
So if you can keep your mental health healthy, that will sustain you through not only periods like this, which is unprecedented, but just through our industry in general, because it can be quite taxing. In normal times, it can be quite taxing, but particularly at the moment.
And I think talking about it, like yesterday, I was saying on the CCI, I was feeling just this like, this sadness, and I just couldn't get it out of me. And then, like, by about 8:30, I was out of it. I was exhausted, and it's just because I felt so low, and like, but speak about it, talk about it. And today I feel so much better. It's okay. It's all right to have those days, and it's important. Going from what you said, to not think that you need to be working on yourself or doing something every day. Give your space, give yourself that time. And I think the way that with that opportunity we're talking about is, and it's a bit like you approaching your producing. Will an audience come? So it's will that happen? That's it. So whether or not you're going to make money or not is neither here nor there. It's will an audience come? And of course, if they come, then money will come through the door. But am I delivering something to the community that they want to watch? Not it through my ego or not through this. Are they going to want to watch it? And that's kind of how we came about with this is, how do I help somebody else? That's it. How do we help someone? And I think in these times, that's where the opportunity will come for our industry, is sitting here and going, how do I help that person, that part of the industry? How do I do that? And from that will come, can come ideas.
But I think this is what I love about yourself and Rosie, is that has been your ethos before coronavirus. We've known each other for a few years now, and it's just, you're always reaching out and you're always kind of going, oh yeah, cool, can we help? Or you go into every situation with an attitude of collaboration. And I think so it doesn't surprise me at all that this has come out of that, because that's your ethos as people. And I think it's crucial as well, because theatre can be a little bit cutthroat, and I think the more we can go, okay, how can I help and how can we collaborate, or how can we uplift each other? I think that's just going to bring us back, because I don't want to go on a government bashing run, but I think our government is literally, the grant that they have put out is to literally sustain and mothball venues until March next year. So the hope is that when we hit March, the venues will be open again, but that's it. We've kind of been left out to dry apart from that. So that is for us.
I think we've got to do it for ourselves. I think we've got to help each other out. I really do. I think that's where this industry is definitely going to go in a hopeful way. And I think it has really brought the industry together. And it's the other day I was like, hey guys, just calm down on Twitter. Let's not fight each other. Let us stick together, for crying out loud. To finish off, what is the one, it can be 10 pieces, but what is the one piece of advice that you would give to somebody wanting to go? Commercial elements. You've worked then for one of the biggest producers in the world, working within that company as well. But if you look back to yourself going into producing, what would you say to yourself back then?
What are you doing? Just be an accountant. No, I think it's, and this is where I've fallen down more than once. Are you absolutely 100% passionate about the project you're doing?
Right.
Because it will get difficult. Even the most meticulously planned projects that are selling out everywhere you go will have their difficult moments. And it is in those difficult moments, if you can sit there as a producer and kind of go, I'm passionate about this show, I'm proud of the show, I think that will take you a long way. And it's reach out, and it's ask people, reach out to people in the industry to see if they can help, if they can guide. But for any young producer coming up, I cannot recommend Stage One enough. The Stage One, it's a charity that's been set up to aid producers early on in their career, and they've been a godsend to me. But just the courses they run, the networking they do is, so I would say, be passionate about the project, go to Stage One, and make sure you're looking after your mental health. It is there is a mental health crisis in the UK at the moment, but there has been a mental health crisis in our industry for a very, very long time. And I just think it's something that I've become more and more passionate about, is just looking after your mental health. Because if your mental health is in a relatively good place, then those are really tough days as an actor or as a producer or whatever line you're doing, you can get through them a little bit better if you kind of have these things you do in order to get you back on track.
Awesome. Damien.Tracey, that is our hour. I can't believe it goes so quickly. So quickly. Oh, thank you so much for giving your time today and coming on to the CCI and chatting all about producing and about you. Absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate it. I'm going to take you out the live stream, but stay backstage and I'll come and talk to you in a moment. Damien.Tracey.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, buddy. Really appreciate it.
Take care. Awesome. And his production of Our House was stunning. Absolutely brilliant. If you are struggling with mental health, Industry Minds, we partner with them for the CCI. The wonderful Mary Birch has come on here. Please reach out to them. They're an incredible operation and they can help you. Everyone needs help. That's it. It's not a thing to worry about. If you need to talk, if you need help, please. And also on the CCI, those sessions we do leave up, so you can go back and have a little look through those sessions as well. But Industry Minds, reach out to them. They have a wonderful podcast and they're there to help you. Thank you so much to Damien.Tracey. Up next, we have Natasha Kathy Chandra, and she'll be working at 3 o'clock with 3 actors. So just like 30 minutes. So come back and see us then, and we will